Crescent Moon Club, in association with ABT, presents Omnibus Unlimited, a roundtable discussion of provocative subjects which must be addressed today. Radiovision for the 21st century. Hello again, everyone. I'm Laurence, Nobile, independent researcher and host of Omnibus Unlimited. Tonight, we come to you from the basement of our Dedham studios. Tonight, our topic for discussion is about sea monsters.
Yep, particularly we're going to do the sea monster off Santa Barbara.
And that, of course, is seeker and producer of Omnibus Unlimited, John Horrigan. John, thanks for having the show and being here tonight to tell us a tale.
Thanks, Larry. Yep. Tonight, the sea monster off of Santa Barbara. It's called TV Scans a Monster. It's out of Frank Edwards' Strange World. Number 32, page 126. And I'll do it in a British accent.
Very good, John. Very good.
While some nations, including our own, are engaged in a frantic and ruinously expensive program to reach the moon, the fact remains that most of the Earth has never been seen by man. This is true because ocean covers 70% of the Earth, and only 5% of the ocean bottom has yet been seen by human beings. The record, a growing record at that, shows that we have much to learn about the ocean and its creatures. One fascinating bit of information was kept under wraps for 9 months before it finally came to light. The story of the weird creature that frequented the depths off Santa Barbara, California, in February 1962. Forrest Adrian, a photographer, was using a television camera directed by remote control to check the point where an underwater oil well casing entered the ocean floor. He was so startled that he yelled when a strange creature like a giant snake appeared on the screen of the set. The whole crew rushed into the cabin and watched it along with Adrian. The deep-sea divers who worked around that wellhead were especially interested, of course. What they saw was a creature between 10 and 15 feet long, designed along the general lines of a snake. It had knobby ridges running around the spiral of its body, like a long coiled spring with lumps on it, and it swam by rolling round and round. As it vanished from camera range and reappeared from time to time, the viewers had the feeling that there were several of the creatures, slightly different in length and bulk, although they saw no more than one at each time. It was evidently attracted by the camera lights at a depth of 179 feet. Scientists, none of whom bothered to go see the thing, ventured the various opinions that it was a member of the jellyfish family, or a group of little creatures that held on to each other, or just a lot of jellyfish clinging to each other, etc., etc. Since this did not satisfy those who had seen the critter, the crew of that Shell Oil rig just called the monster Marvin, which means friend of the sea. That's what the divers hope he is. Marvin.
Very, very interesting, John. Sea monsters. Boy, can there be anything more provocative than sea monsters? We have that one. Now, that one's off the coast of Santa Barbara, California.
Right. Yeah, it's called Marvin.
Marvin?
Marvin, the sea monster off of Santa Barbara, right. So you have some guys with a camera in February of 62. You have the camera underwater, checking out an oil well casing as it enters the ocean floor, just to make sure everything goes okay. And this thing scoots past, and they call people in. Then they start seeing it from time to time, and they have the feeling that there's more than one.
So they have... They actually have video of this, then.
Right. Now, again, this comes from Frank Edwards, as we found out in the saucer crash story.
Mm-hmm.
His reputation, he tended to forget things and to sensationalize things.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, forgetfulness is not a sin in and of itself. Some of the greatest minds were forgetful. But at any rate... in terms of sea monsters, I think it's interesting to note that with all the people on this planet, all of the sea life that is caught for food, now all of the sea life that is caught is not turned into food, some of it is not even used, but of all the sea life caught, it is estimated that it is, at best, 2% of what is out there in the ocean. And so we are in contact with only 2% of the life in the oceans. And it's interesting to note that people are looking more and more towards space, as they should, as the next frontier, but perhaps a frontier that should be on a parallel to space should be the oceans. We should definitely be exploring the oceans. I think I remember telling you, John, once that the deepest part of the ocean is at a place called Challenger Deep, which is down by the Philippines. And Challenger Deep, as I recall, is somewhere on the order of 9,000 meters deep. So we're talking something on the order of 27,000 feet. Actually, I think it's more like 35,000 feet deep. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about almost 7 miles under the surface of the water. And there's a lot of stuff down there. And I think that we should be exploring building crafts that can withstand that kind of pressure and still be large enough. They have crafts now that can go very deep, but they're robots and very small, and they can't, some of them can accommodate 1, maybe 2 people. But I'm talking about sticking money into programs that will build large submarines to hold many people that can explore depths as deep as Challenger Deep. So, but of course this means money. And money is one thing that we have very little of, but as you and I have discussed in the past, John, I think we both agree that money should be stuck into the Defense Department to create jobs, as it does in civilian life, by developing new and better technology. But it's not surprising that we have quote-unquote sea monsters. They're not sea monsters, they're just other life forms which we don't come into contact very much at all. And we see them every now and then, and it's not surprising that we would, because the ocean is teeming with life, absolutely teeming with life, and I think it's very exciting, and it's something that we should be exploring more of.
Do you think something, so you obviously believe that something was seen off Santa Barbara, that Marvin is true. That's what they dubbed him, and they thought that there were more than one. Now, they said it was snake-like. You always hear undulating. We'll do specials on some of the lake and river monsters too, but for the time being we'll talk about Marvin and the sea monster theory. Now, what could the sea monster be? Number 1, a giant tassel worm. Number 2, a giant eel. That's a theory that's put forward. Another one says the plesiosaur. Supposedly it's extinct dinosaur, although this thing sounds like it doesn't have... A plesiosaur kind of looks like a brontosaurus. What do they say in Python? It's thin on one end and elk. Much thicker in the middle and thin on the other. That was their theory about brontosauruses, so we could have that theory about plesiosauruses. But that's what it looks like. Now, of course, some sightings, when you see these humps out in the water, they could be seals. I've seen them, and I said, what was that? And that was a seal. Or any type of mammal like that, a walrus, a sea potato. There are plenty of dolphins could even account for that. There are a lot of fish that jump out of water and that feed out of water. Even a bird splashing down if you didn't see it properly. There are birds that sit, ducks and seagulls that'll ride the waves for hours. See? But what they saw was underwater. And if something crossed their field of view and it was large and undulating like a snake, I think it was either an eel, depths. Let's straighten this out first of all. Underwater, your vision is poor.
Okay. Extremely so. There is little or no light in water, and when you take lights down into water and turn them on, the surrounding blackness in the water just sort of sucks up all of the light, and so your light does not work as well as it would above the land on shore, because it doesn't bounce off of anything. it is absorbed by the blackness of the water. And so we need to develop more powerful lights that will light the undersea, so that we can see more clearly. But you're quite right. And that's why, you know, the Soviet submarines and American submarines, they're running around there and they're trying to find each other with radar and sonar and this and that. And people say, well, why don't you just look out the window and see if they're out there? Well, you can't see. You're so far underwater that even the light of the sun doesn't make it down there. It's just the surrounding blackness in the water. You talk about black. Black as pitch, black as night. No way. The blackest black is in the ocean.
I thought you were going to break out into a song just then. So you're saying that it's very difficult to see. Now, they're at 179 feet when they drop this camera down. And something crosses its path. Now, when I first read this, I said, I wanted to know what type of lens they were using in that camera. The reason being, if they were using a telephoto or a wide angle or even just some sort of simple filter, that could cause the bending or the convexing or the concaving of the lens could cause some creature to be altered in shape. For instance, they saw a mother of a moray eel, maybe. And because of the way it passed in front of the glass, it was a quick pass.
Especially if the lens was something like a fisheye, no pun intended.
That's what I'm implying. Okay, so we have to find out about that. The other thing that I question is when you see it, and they saw it several times, I want to know what their mobility of the camera was. Was it a stationary camera? Or did they actually, was it a free-flowing? I know it was an automated camera, but did they have a lot of movement? Because they said that they saw it on a few more occasions, and they had the feeling that there were more. I think they might have seen an eel. Marvin might have been an eel. Any type of sea serpent, although most lake and loch monsters are plesiosaur-like, okay? More lake monsters and loch monsters. River monsters tend to be serpentine. Okay, like this. And sea monsters tend to be serpentine, eel-like. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that would fit in the puzzle.
Well, I think it's interesting to note that if the dinosaurs were killed on this planet by some catastrophe of some sort, and I'm agreeing with you when I say that most of the sightings of monsters, whether they be loch monsters or sea monsters or what have you, are probably mistakes, no doubt. Because, as I say, we've only been in contact with 2% of the life in the ocean. That's it. That's all we've been in contact with, 2%. There is far more than we can imagine. But if the dinosaurs were going to survive some catastrophic event on the planet, where could they best do it? And that would probably be in the sea or in the water of some sort. And so I wouldn't be a bit surprised, and I think it's highly probable that there are unusual creatures that still live in the sea, in the water, in the oceans, that we do not bump into that often. We just don't bump into them that often, but they are there, and every now and then somebody sees something which is phenomenal, nothing short of phenomenal. And I think that this Earth, these oceans have a lot more phenomenal events for us. What do you think, John?
The ocean we're killing and polluting, and we have total disregard for it, yet we're farming it, we're living on it, we're exploiting it for pleasure on our vacations. We have to, first of all, can the ocean be cleaned up? I don't think so. Although George Carlin, we'll go back to that quote, this earth will shake us off like fleas. Can the ocean recover from all the pollutants? We're polluting it and killing it. And as you said, this world is getting smaller day by day, but they've neglected the ocean. All they're concerned about the ocean is, for all intent and purposes, staying on top of it for transport. And underneath, though, submarine warfare is an entirely different science. And like you said, look out the window. You know, and you can't just look out the window. Even if he was just by you, you wouldn't see him.
Right, it could be right next to you. And in fact, there are many cases where subs are tracking each other and bump into each other because they're, you can't see. That's all there is. And unless you're like 1 inch away, perhaps you might see, but maybe not even then. The ocean is just so bloody dark. At any rate, I think that my point is that, as I made before, there's a lot of stuff out there in the ocean that we have yet to see, and I think that I'd love to see more of it. I love these stories, although I think the Loch Ness Monster might be a little bit played out. But if you're just joining us, the name of this program is Omnibus Unlimited, and tonight our roundtable is discussing the subject of
Marvin, the Santa Barbara sea monster.
That, of course, is seeker and producer of Omnibus Unlimited, John Horrigan. I'm Laurence, Nobile, independent researcher and host of Omnibus Unlimited. And John, we've been talking about Marvin, which once again means friend of the sea. Is that right? Friend of the sea. And it's interesting that a bunch of guys from Shell would name a sea monster with such a benevolent name.
Well, not talking about sea monsters and benevolence, the only recorded one that I can think of, Jonah in the Bible being swallowed by a whale. And didn't Pinocchio's old man get swallowed by one? Didn't Geppetto get swallowed too? I don't know. But these sea monsters, they're harmless. They don't attack. They run away. Just like the Bigfoot and the Sasquatch. We're going to do a show on them. But they don't want to hurt you. They're anomalies, and they flee. They like to be left the F alone, and that's just the way that they are. And I think, for instance, that the Sasquatch is just an anthropological bookend for a species. The ones that they're digging up, the Australopithecus and whatnot, that's the Sasquatch's parents, his bloodline, his descendants. He's atavistic to primitive life forms that were created with a little glue by anthropologists, with a little creativity. I often say that when they're going to dig up, I buried a couple of boxes of Kentucky Fried Chicken bones, and they're going to dig that up and piece together some sort of weird bird that walked the earth. I don't want to be around, man. I don't want to see it. But back to the sea monster, to Marvin. I think something was sighted. I think it wasn't as big as they said it was. That's my point. Was it some sort of sea monster that's an anomaly? Perhaps. Maybe it's a deep-sea eel that these guys have never seen before. I don't recall seeing in the story that they were marine biologists, and in fact scientists ignored it like they always do. That's why science is so slow to progress. They don't follow up on their leads. But what they saw, it was, and maybe they're not used to seeing a thing. But again, I must emphasize that this does fall into the category of other sea serpent sightings. But as far as a sea serpent hurting anybody, it doesn't do that. They'll splash them and startle you. That's the fun of them. That's the fun of them. And we're going to be doing a program, I'm sure several, about Loch Ness. Have all the photos. Something like this, though, why don't they have pictures? Just because no one's carrying. Are you carrying around a camera at all times? The only time you're going to be carrying a camera is when you're on vacation, I think. Or if you just don't take it around with you everywhere. So people say, why don't you have a picture? And these are one-time events. And well, how can you be sure that everything's true? Probably half of it is not true. I was talking to you the other night, and I said, Lara, I've been seeing things out of the corner of my eye, and you said, John, time for a tune-up, a mental tune-up. No, it's just I think it's because the cornea of my eyes, the retinas are ghosted because of using computer terminals, watching TV. I do a lot of videography, and one eye is in the eyepiece constantly. I edit a lot of videotape, so I'm watching monitors constantly. So yeah, I'm burning it out. And that can play tricks on my eyes. Now, if I were to run something in front of you, if we were to hold our breath and go underwater, now this isn't any type of Michael Jackson thing with it. If we were to hold our breath and go underwater, and just somebody dropped, say, 5 random objects, okay? And then they told us, in ocean water, and then they told us to back up 10 feet, drop 5 random objects. And then they drop. I think that you and I, what we would describe would probably be about 50% correct. Do you know what I'm saying?
I agree with that, John. I think that's correct. Again, seeing things in the ocean is very difficult to do. I'm sure that many of the sightings that are seen of serpents and what have you, at least half are mistaken. They've seen something else. And this sighting of Marvin may have been a simple eel, something that they don't see very often. But I do, again, believe that there are many unexplained, fantastic creatures out there that we have yet to discover. And you bring up an interesting point about their benevolence. They don't want to hurt us, so why should we want to hurt them? All of these anomalies, as it were, sort of clinging to evolution instead of being shrugged off as perhaps they should have been many years ago. They're hanging on for whatever reason. But I think that we have a lot of misconceptions about anomalies in creaturedom, the evolution of species. And for instance, we have many misconceptions about bats. We think bats are bad, that they attack people and so forth, but they do not. They eat thousands of times their weight in
bugs.
And I suppose that's really where this show is going, is why
To the bats.
We've had it to bats. But really, I suppose where the show is heading is that we should not treat anomalies. And I would think a bat is an anomaly. It's an odd thing to look at. Yes, John?
Yeah, it's just like we did a show about it. Respecting other life forms. And I think that everybody, I won't believe that till we have proof. They talk about that with the aliens, with the sea monsters, and the Sasquatches, and why haven't there been remains? So maybe, let's get into the supernatural aspect of it. We have a little under 10 left. Do you think that these could be supernatural manifestations? Have you read Michael Crichton's Fear? Have you read that book?
No, I haven't.
I recommend that highly. It's where people start imagining these things. Their imagination takes over. And they start seeing giant squids in huge schools of jellyfish. I think that speaking of jellyfish, I remember as a young man going off Green Harbor Beach in Marshfield and seeing schools of jellyfish and being pulled out of the water by my mother and all the kids, all my brothers and sisters. All of us had to come out of the water because there were jellyfish. I remember bigger than the size of my head, and I was probably 6 or 7 years old at the time. And these were huge jellyfish. I remember at the time somebody saying that they had pulled up some sort of gigantic jellyfish on Brant Rock. This must be back in the 70s, early 70s. And all right, so as far as me, now that jellyfish that I thought was gigantic, that will be impressionable, probably wouldn't be so big now that I'm an adult. But back to the psychic or psychical manifestations. That's where now we're into the supernatural. We really can't explain it. What would cause it? Don't know. Does it have anything to do with aliens? Don't know. Did somebody see something? If they're a sane person and they insist upon it, or more than one person saw it and claims to it, yeah, they saw something. You know, like here, this thing here that we saw, there was a 5 or 6 of them that saw it. Yeah, they saw something. Was it the eel now? If 5 or 6 of them saw it, probably. It was a mother eel. You know what I'm saying? It was a king size eel, whatever it was.
Well, very interesting, and certainly people will see what they want to see, whether they're based upon their point of view, of course. As a child, this jellyfish was no doubt a sea monster, and it all depends on one's point of view. If one is full of fear, then certainly things will appear to be something that they are not. That is to say, something that might be threatening, but it is not threatening if you do not threaten it. But again, these things that we look at, what are they called? They're called supernatural. But again, that word is natural. It's just something that we don't normally see, but it is natural to the universe. If it does indeed exist, if it does indeed take place, then it is natural to the universe. It's just something that we do not normally see on a regular basis. And so, when you see something that you have never seen before, hard to imagine actually doing that. How can I imagine seeing something that I've never seen before? But if I do see something that I've never seen before, how the hell would I describe it? I'd have to let it coalesce in my consciousness for a long period of time, no doubt, and then try to relate it to other concepts that I had before I saw this thing, and try to cross-reference it to other experiences that I had had. But that has to be a very difficult event for human beings, to see something which is supernatural and then be able to describe it. And we've had examples of that, Ezekiel and so forth. These events are difficult to explain because one does not see them regularly, if at all. And if that's not enough, and darn it, don't you think it ought to be, it's hard enough for you to see it and then think about it and describe it. Now, I've never seen it. How the hell are you going to describe it to me? I certainly have no frame of reference, and I didn't see it. So your telling me about it is made doubly hard because neither one of us has seen it before, and you just saw it for the first time. So that's the problem with supernatural. It doesn't mean that they don't happen. So the Virgin Mary is obviously something is happening, and we just do not know how to describe it very well as yet. Her message seems to be a good one, but does that mean it's God? Maybe. But it's certainly a supernatural event which not many people have seen, and so is difficult to describe. I've never seen it, so it would be almost impossible for me to understand it. At any rate, that'll about wrap it up for this episode of Omnibus Unlimited, ending our discussion of
Marvin, the Santa Barbara sea monster. Folks, this is called Going on the Air by the Seat of Your Pants, but then we finally carved a niche. That's what the title of it is. But they saw something. That's what I think. And we're going to be investigating other sea monster cases, other river and lake and loch monster cases as well. That's why we're the Crescent Moon Club, isn't it, Larry?
That's right, John. And we're darn good at it, I might add. At any rate, I'd like to thank you, John Horrigan, for being with me on this episode of Omnibus Unlimited on Marvin. Certainly, whatever they saw has a name now, and it's Marvin. But thanks, John, for being here tonight and having the show.
Thank you, Larry.
And I'd like to add that Omnibus Unlimited is seeking aspiring artists and videographers to display their work on our visual backdrop of Omnibus Unlimited. If you are an aspiring artist or videographer and you'd like to have your works displayed on our show, please send a letter to us at Omnibus Unlimited, Box 577, Dover, Massachusetts 02030-0577. In your letter, please include your name, address, phone number, and area of study. All letters will be answered, and perhaps your work will be on Omnibus Unlimited. For the rest of our audience, if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, or if you'd like to be a guest on Omnibus Unlimited, that address once again is Omnibus Unlimited, Box 577, Dover, Massachusetts 02030-0577. I'm Laurence Nobile, independent researcher and host of Omnibus Unlimited. For all of us at Omnibus Unlimited, thank you for your attention. Good night and good luck. Omnibus Unlimited is a presentation of ABT and the Crescent Moon Club.
The paranormal, the unconventional, the bizarre, the strange, the unexplained, the weird. The Crescent Moon Club. Omnibus Unlimited. Check it out. Only on ABT. Your leader in entertainment. ABT is a division of Cyclops Entertainment.
When you need to talk about the supernatural, bizarre, the unconventional, and just plain weird stuff, you turn to Omnibus Unlimited. Omnibus Unlimited of the Crescent Moon Club, presented by ABT, a division of Cyclops Entertainment. Omnibus Unlimited, the leader in presenting the bizarre and the unconventional. When you need supernatural, you turn to Omnibus Unlimited. And if they don't have Omnibus Unlimited in your area, well, then move.
That's a copy.